Hello. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm normally not trying to preach to people or even talk to people on the internet or through YouTube. But I think this is an important time. And it's important for me and people like me to speak up. Let me give you a little bit of my background. I'm a retired Army officer and a retired federal employee. I'm well versed and well trained on military doctrine and military history. One of my favorite books is John Kennedy's Profile in Courage. It's a very thin book, but it reads like the Magna Carta. President Kennedy set out a great example for what it is to be courageous during times of turmoil, during times of war. One thing that book teaches is that if we are going to have leaders of integrity, we must have politicians who have courage. Courage to do their jobs based on their beliefs and not their fears. We don't have that in the United States today. We have politicians who are not doing their jobs. They're operating under an umbrella of fear, under an umbrella of corruption. We have a president who, by all accounts, from what I can see, does not have the best interests of America at heart. We have a president who puts his personal and private gain above the personal health and welfare of the American citizen. Corruption is running rampant. And I can say that out of actual knowledge. I spent many years in the government as a contracting person, whether that be at the enlisted level, the officer level, or the civilian level. I understand government contracts. I know what it takes to award a sole source contract. I know what the acquisition process entails and how we had a system that operated fairly and awarded contracts to the most capable of contractors and to the largest benefit of the U.S. government. What I see now is mass corruption by people in positions of power. I see congressmen and senators getting rich off of insider trading. I see the president enriching himself and his family through deals with foreign governments and foreign countries. I see pardons being sold to the detriment of the American people. We're in perilous times. We're in the midst of an illegal war that should have never been started because we didn't need to start it. Our president has lied to us. Our political leaders have lied to us. And the ones who haven't lied have been largely silent out of fear or allegiance to a man who has no allegiance to anyone other than himself. Let me tell you what my politics are. And I normally wouldn't do that, but I do it in this instance because I understand that you can close off your hearing if you believe the person speaking to you is a polar opposite of what you are and what your beliefs are. I am a registered Democrat. But since I've become voting age, I've voted for almost as many Republicans as I have Democrats. Why? Because I vote the issues. I don't vote the party. I vote the issues that best benefit me and my family and my country. In many cases, I voted against the benefit of myself for the benefit of my country. That's who I am. I believe, and I honestly believe this, that in President Trump, we had a president who had the greatest opportunity to be a great leader. And I don't say that because he's the brightest man to ever be elected to office. I don't say that because he's the richest man to ever be elected to office, although he is. I say that because he had a solid 30% of the American voting public behind him. And when you start from that position to where you have a solid 30% of the American voting public, you can get almost anything done if what you're trying to get done is to the benefit of the country. But to our detriment, the president went in a completely opposite way. He lied to us during this last election about Project 2025. He said he knew nothing about it. It had nothing to do with it. But yet he goes into office and he implements it. He puts the people in charge of Project 25 in key positions in our government. He puts incompetent people in charge of our military. I know what a good leader is. I served under them. I consider myself a decent leader when I was in the military. Pete Hegseth is a terrible leader. He knows how to quote the platitudes. He knows how to throw the key phrases out, but he doesn't understand what leadership is. This is a man who has spent 14 months firing some of the best officers that the United States currently has. Why? Because they may look different than he does. They may have a different skin complexion. They may be of a different sex. They may have a different religious affiliation. That's not how we pick generals. Generals pick generals. And I can tell you this. I can tell you this guaranteed. 70% of the Army Officer Corps is conservative. Why? Because it's a conservative system. Those generals who selected those generals because they were the best, not because they were Republicans or they were Democrats or they were Christians or they were Muslims or they were black or they were white or they were women or they were men. They selected them because they were the best. But yet, the Secretary of what he calls war, and that's an apt name for him because he's gotten us into